Welcome to the Women Leaders Association podcast, where we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. Be sure to tune in each week to hear an empowering message from the world's top women executives, trailblazers, entrepreneurs, and all-around fierce female leaders. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland, and I will be taking you on a deep dive of each message to equip you with the principles, strategies, and tools you need to start crushing your goals, increasing your impact, creating work-life harmony, and did I mention have more fun? Because when you love what you do it better. The Women Leaders Association is the world's largest women executives association with over 30,000 women in executive and leadership positions who are committed to the development and advancement of women in the corporate arena. If you would like to get involved in a Women Leaders Association chapter, would enjoy daily podcasts, or you desire to become a part of the Women's Mastermind group near you, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com. Now let's tune in for this incredible message. I'm so excited she's here. Welcome, Janice.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited. So you and your husband have written this book together. Is that right?
That's right.
And it's called Farther, Faster, and with Far Less Drama.
Yes. Because who doesn't want to go farther, get there faster, and for God's sake, reduce the drama?
Yes. So it's so cool because our podcast, Women Leaders Podcast, is further, faster, and with more fun. So it's basically
nice. Well, I have to talk about the further, farther thing. So we decided to go with the farther, which is grammatically not correct. So I apologize to all of the people who understand that. But I liked the F-A-F-A, farther, faster, and far less drama. So there you go.
Did your editor give you a hard time about that?
Oh yeah, I had to defend it a couple times. Which, I used it long ago. I used to be a copy editor back in a previous career, back in the early 90s. And so I really respect the people who want to make it correct. But I thought alliteration won the day.
Yeah. And it's cool too, because, from a marketing perspective, it's going to make somebody hold the book longer and be like, wait,
what?
You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
So whatever it takes.
I've always been a little bit of a rule breaker. So there you go.
Same. Okay. So in your book, you talk about the 4 leadership motions. Yeah. Let's start there. Explain we're not going to start there. We're going to start with how you came into this book in the first place. You said it was 3 years in the making. So start there.
Well, to be honest, it's actually more like 20 years in the making. Right. And my husband and I, started a company together about 12 years ago where we were coaching and supporting entrepreneurs to create their products. And so we formalized a lot of the ideas in there were 50 companies that went through it. And now we would call it an accelerator, would have a totally different business model. But we had 50 companies go through our program, and it was 10 weeks. They would come and spend a whole day every week in our studio. And, so we watched all of these leaders who were trying to do really ambitious things, try to make decisions and make things happen. And so we got to see what allowed people to actually break through the clutter, make progress, and we were able to figure out how to make progress reliably easy. That's what we wanted was to make it easier for these ambitious leaders to do something really important without so much friction. And so we took all of those ideas to a company called Pivotal, which was right at the point where it was going to grow radically. So it went from 5 offices to 22, and it went from, a few hundred employees to, thousands. And so we were able to really spread this methodology through that organization. And so again, we were able to refine it and take it into very large companies and that sort of thing. So the book is really a distillation and documentation of things that we observed in other leaders over an extended period of time. And then we tried to make it repeatable. And that's the thing that we always really like is you see someone who does something really well, like lead a team through uncertain times, and you're like, well, how do they do that? And can we make it something simple enough to learn, teach, and repeat? And so above all, we wanted this to be a useful guide, which is now we get to the motions, right? We wanted it to be a useful guide so that leaders anywhere in any context, like whether for me, it was like the PTA was way harder. Like starting a PTA at my son's kindergarten was harder than starting a company. And I've started 6 companies. Like it was hard. So wherever you're leading, it kind of doesn't matter. We just want you to be able to know what to do. And so the 4 leadership motions are just things you can do in any context to make progress. That's it. And we wanted it to be just that plain and simple. So, I mean, there's some philosophy in there. I won't lie. But it really all comes together with how do you do leadership in a way that's empathetic and kind and, really aligned with our values and who we want to be in the world and make bold, ambitious things happen.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that about the PTA, because last summer I took on the role of like co-chairing my son's swim team, the summer swim league. And I'm like, out of all the things I've done, and Janice, I've had quadruplets. Like I've done
oh my God,
some unique things, right?
Yeah.
And like big things. And that was such a hard undertaking.
Yeah.
No, I'm so glad you're making it available to people that aren't just in the corporate arena. Yeah.
It really does get harder almost when there isn't clear lines of authority, when the more people, what I've noticed is the more people care, the harder it can be, because you're more likely to debate every decision. You're more likely to think that everything you do is going to have some dire consequences. And so you throw it into the arena of people's children and their aspirations for what their children's life and experience will be. And like, now you've got like, you not only have the rational minds of all those parents and instructors, you also have all the emotions that go along with caring. And so it can get really complicated really fast.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are the 4 motions? Can you touch on what those are?
Yeah, sure. The first, and I think it really does come first in most cases, is to orient honestly. And, as leaders, we're taught a lot of tools for setting goals for like, here's where we want to go, right? But we're not taught how to know where we are right now. And like, if you have a map and you need to drive from like Miami to Denver, you need to know that you're starting from Miami in order to have good directions, right? So we just don't have a lot of tools for understanding where we are right now. And there's this one that was developed by this woman. Her name is Barbara Minto, and she developed this in the 60s. She was the first woman, I believe, hired into McKinsey Consulting Company. She was in the first graduating class of women at Harvard Business School. And she figured out this model. And the whole thing is called the pyramid principle, Barbara Minto's pyramid principle, but it's situation, complication, question, answer. That's how she frames every problem. And it's so simple. It's easy to remember. It's easy to use. So the first thing is, what is the current situation? What is my version of it? What is yours? Then what makes this moment complicated? Why do we have to think to get to a goal? And so it's that combination of situation plus complication that allows us, that is what framing a problem is.
Yeah.
And so my dog is making noise at the door. I don't know if you can hear that.
Okay. We're dog lovers.
Good.
It's all good.
All right. Well, dog wants to go out. He's not gonna.
That's all. So it's fine.
Okay. My dog has jingle bells. So you're going to hear jingle bells for a minute, sleigh bells. Okay. So second leadership motion is, so once you've oriented honestly, then you need to, you're going to make your plans, you're going to have your goals, but you need to value outcome. All right. So valuing outcomes means that we're going to make our plans, but what's most important is not the plan. It doesn't matter if you do every action in your action plan. If those actions don't actually lead to the outcome you're looking for, then they're not worth doing. It's kind of like sailing a boat. You need to be able to tack into the wind and adjust course when you figure out whether or not you're heading in the right direction. So that's number 2. Number 3 is leverage the brains. And this is something that I think, women and people from underrepresented communities, I think that often we are used to locking arms and working together to get things done. And so this is sort of a superpower for some leaders, that it's not about having the right answers, it's having the right question, and then bringing in the people and the knowledge holders who can contribute, right? And who can really help. So leverage the brains is the third one. And the fourth is probably the most controversial and thought-provoking perhaps, and it's make durable decisions. So that means make decisions that can last.
Yeah.
So we lose time before a decision is made and after a decision is made. Before a decision is made, we lose time and friction because we're trying to make the right decision, right?
Yeah.
Or the best possible decision, or we want to have full consensus that everyone agrees that this is the best decision.
Right.
All of that is just too high of a standard. It's not possible.
Yeah.
We can't possibly know what is right. We can't. We can have good data. We can make a best guess.
Sure.
So the standard can come down and be more realistic, and you can say, does this make good progress toward our important outcome, and can everyone live with it? Doesn't mean everyone agrees. It means everyone can live with it and support it, even if we disagree. So disagree and commit is part of that. So that's before. And then after a decision is made, we lose time by revisiting our decisions, reconsidering them, relitigating them. Nothing's more frustrating than thinking that you all have made a decision and then finding out a week later that other people changed their minds, right? So what we want is to have a decision that can withstand some challenges, because important decisions are going to get challenged, and we want to make a good enough decision that moves us toward our outcome. What we want is to make a decision that everyone can live with, so we don't lose all that time. And also, it's not just time, it's like friction and frustration. I don't want to spend my frustration on something that's avoidable. And that's where we get to a lot of the reducing drama. I think a lot of drama comes specifically around decision making. Who's involved in decisions, what information is used to make a decision, and then, are we all willing to disagree and commit, even if it's not to everyone's liking.
Right.
So that's where I really focus the drama portion is in how do we approach and make decisions.
Yeah. So in your research and life experience with that, what do you think caused the most amount of drama, once the decision was made? Is it more like somebody just decides that they're no longer going along with the decision, or they just said they were going to go along with the decision and really didn't feel that way and started stirring the pot? Like what are the most common reasons for drama that came up for you?
Well, so, every culture is slightly different. And there are some cultures that just take forever to make a decision. And there are other cultures where there's, someone's going to just make a call and then it falls apart. And it's, I think the latter causes the most, well, no, both of them cause a lot of back channel conversations, right? So when I look for drama, I look for where are people complaining and not telling the truth to each other, right? Where are people, right, having those side conversations? It used to be, we call them water cooler conversations. Now it's, I don't know, on Slack or whatever. And, but they're on the side and they're like, I can't believe XYZ happened. I can't believe they did this, or the other thing. So that to me is an indicator that they don't have a really solid decision process and they don't have a culture that supports durable decision making. The second is there are cultures where the last person in the room, the last person to talk to the decision maker is the one who has the most influence. And so you get, a collection of people on day one and they make a call, and then that senior leader has 2 or 3 other conversations later in the day or later in the week, and they make a different decision. And so it's about influencers rather than decision makers, right? And this is one of the reasons that decision making models that we've been taught often don't work, because they take into consideration, decision rights, but they don't necessarily take into consideration who actually influences the people who implement the outcome. Right. So what we want to do is really focus on becoming more orienting honestly, right, around who has the real influence, right? And then getting aligned. If we can get aligned on where are we right now and what is the outcome we're all striving toward, we're going to be able to reduce a lot of that frustration.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And talking about the orient honestly, not only within the company infrastructure, but like in a person within themselves. Do you discuss that, and like how is that
very much
applied?
Well, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because we can't transform and improve the exterior unless we're also willing to transform and improve the interior. And so all of these techniques, we discuss how they apply as an individual first. It's really important that we orient honestly as an individual about what is our piece in this and get clear with ourselves so that we can then be more effective in the moment. Because if we're not really clear, let's just taking decision making. If we're not clear ourselves why it is that we're so against XYZ decision, then we can't actually have a good faith conversation with others about that. So, figuring out for ourselves, like, where am I right now and what makes this moment complicated for me, that's going to help me know how to conduct myself in that group situation.
Yeah. So when you've taken companies and individuals through these 4 leadership motions, what have you seen as the outcomes?
Oh boy, it's it's funny. Sometimes things feel like magic, So I used to work at this company called Pivotal, and Pivotal was in the business of building software. I'm not necessarily a tech person, even though I've been in Silicon Valley for about 25 years now. And Pivotal could build software so much faster than anybody else that it just seemed like it didn't seem possible, right? Like, how is it possible that after 2 days you can have working software when it would have taken, back at headquarters, it would have taken us, 6 months to get to working software, right? Like, it really was that sort of like, this is magic. It can't be right. What? So I've had the same experience with some of these leadership motions. And there was one example of this. I was co-facilitating a strategic planning session, annual strategic planning session with a guy named Eric Ries, who wrote a very famous book called The Lean Startup. And I was his sort of in the room facilitator. And there was this one table, it was a publicly traded company. They were maybe 5-7 years old, hot shots, really planning for the next year of a big expansion. And there was this one table of 10 people, and they were just stuck. They were the last table. There were like 7 tables or something in this leadership group, and they were stuck and weren't making any progress. And everyone else was done and was like having their coffee, and these guys were still talking and debating. And I walked up to them, and my goal was just to orient honestly on where they are. And I said, so what are the propositions on the table? What is the decision you're working on? What are the options available? And there were these 2 options, and they had been really debating this one option. And I said, well, let me just see kind of, if you had to make a call right now, who would support option A? 9 people raised their hands. And I said, okay, so who would support option B? And 1 person raised his hand. And I said, well, how important is it to you, option B person, that you have option B? And he's like, it's really not that important. I just wanted to talk about it. I said, okay, how long have you been talking about this? Like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I was like, do you think that you've heard all of the arguments for and against? Yep. Okay, would you be willing to support option A? Yeah, I don't agree with it, but yeah, I could support that. And they were done. Wow. And it's like they had been just stuck, right? Just stuck. And because they sort of kind of didn't remember to ask the question, like, maybe we've already made a decision. Maybe this is all just fine. Maybe we don't need full consensus. And they moved on. And it was kind of like they felt like it was magic, that it just, like, the disagreement just went away.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. Like, let's just cool down the drama. Like we don't have to have this big heated conversation. We can just say, like, where are we right now?
Right.
And like, how far have we come? And our outcome is to make a decision that we can all live with. And that's it.
Yeah. It reminds me so much of like, either when you're fighting with your spouse, or even if you stumble upon an argument on social media, and just like the stuff that goes back and forth, and you're like, do you even understand what you're fighting about anymore? Because it was once about this, and now you're calling, their puppy ugly. Like, what? It's
Right.
so far out of control that like you're not keeping the main thing anymore. It's more about winning a debate than it is about making a crucial decision.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And, I have to be honest, like Jason and I wrote this book together, and and so we use these techniques at home all the time.
Yeah.
We use them with each other. We use them with, we use them with our kids. Like when our son was in high school, we used it with him. Like he's used to, like, this is my kitchen wall behind me. And it is often we take down the pictures and put up, blue tape and sticky notes, and we like ideate and we literally use the techniques from the book. Okay. Another side note, I have no freaking idea what's going on with my camera. Like, it's changing my color from hot pink. Like, I mean, my shirt is pink, but I think it's having, I will never wear this pink shirt again, because like, look at what it's doing to my chin.
You're having like pink highlights all through your hair.
I'm having like, and it's the sky. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm usually much more professional than this. This is like a disaster.
No, but see, that's the thing, Janice, that like, I am applauding you, because this is life. This is reality. This is honesty, and like, it is so my goal in this podcast, through this podcast, to let women know it is acceptable to just show up.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
So I'm glad it's happening.
Whatever.
She's living in color right now, people.
Woohoo.
I love it. So yeah, talk about some of that, like the practical things you do. You go over like how to ideate and how to do all that.
Yeah. So, our way of doing it, and there are reasons I can explain the logic behind all of it, to whoever wants to nerd out with me, I can go into lots of detail. But the way that we like to do it is we standardized on 3-inch square canary yellow Post-it notes and a Sharpie, like fine point Sharpie. And we hand it to everybody at the table. Let's just say, so one of the decisions we talk about in the book is my son was home for spring break when the COVID lockdown hit back, a few years ago. Yeah. And we didn't know yet, like we live in San Francisco, and San Francisco had declared a state of emergency, but airlines hadn't shut down yet. And the campus was still open. And like, it was in that really ambiguous time where you're like, how bad is this going to be? Are we going to be done in a couple weeks? Like, or is this going to be Yeah. Like nobody knew.
Nobody knew.
And so we had to decide, like, my daughter is in her 30s, and she's very kind of cautious and conservative. So she was dead set against Evan going back to college. And, I wanted to support my son's development, and I knew that he would be terrible at remote school. He would like, and it turned out to be true. Like, he hated remote school. He took a semester off. Like, it was just a no-go. Right. So like, he needed to be back on campus for his own kind of advancement and well-being. So we had a family meeting, and we oriented, honestly, everyone is involved in this decision. All 4 of us, our daughter, as well as her son, we all have an opinion, and everyone's opinion needs to be heard. So we did this, we put up there's a tool called a 2x2, and it's basically just a, 3-foot square, 4 square grid. Right. And everyone wrote arguments for going and arguments against going. And then here's the thing that we do to make group input work. Mm-hmm. We have everyone reduce their own things by half. So it's like, if I came up with 10 items, 10 for, 10 against going back to campus, then I would have to reduce that so that I only had 5 and 5, so that I'm editing myself. I don't have to make everybody else listen to my own ideas. Right. So I just we reduced it all by half. And then we had each person take their top 4 and their top against, and we put some like sorting criteria, and everyone took their top 1 and put it up, and then we talked, and then everyone put their second one up, and then we talked. And by the time we got to 3, we had uncovered such a rich conversation that we were allowed to figure out kind of where we all stood, and we could,
Yeah.
so we heard each other, we
Yeah.
understood each other. Everyone felt like they had contributed equally to the conversation. There was no it wasn't the parents kind of telling the kids what it was like. There was just a really easy give and take. Even though it was a scary and big decision, we were just able to we were able to eliminate the arguing part, the
Yeah.
bickering. I had 4 brothers and sisters. I had 3 brothers and sisters, 4 kids. We argued all the time. It was horrible. I never want to do I don't want that in my home. So,
Yeah.
so this allowed us to have meaningful conversation
Yeah.
where everyone was heard, where there was no clear yes or no. Ultimately, the decision was going to be mine and my husband's, but we needed that decision to be informed by a real richness of what the family cared about and was afraid of.
Yeah. That's so good too, because, in there you talked about valuing the outcomes, and at the end of the day, right? Like y'all didn't know going into it, but the outcome ended up being decided for you.
Yep,
by the
that's
government.
right.
So it's like,
Right.
but the fact that y'all were all able to come to the table and speak honestly and be heard and really share, again, it allows for people to start to take down those walls that we put up of having to be right and having, you know what I mean? And that's just so
Yes.
powerful.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, I think that it's really exhausting to put yourself in a position where you believe you have to be right.
Yeah.
Because how can you possibly know if you're right? It's just so much work. It's so much work. And it feels so risky. And if instead, so part of what we did there was we leveraged the brains. This is one of the things about the book. This is this is on page 11. We no longer believe in work-life balance.
Yeah,
It's all
thing.
just life. It's
Yes.
all just life.
Yes.
And we need to know that it's a life that we want, that it's a life we want to
Absolutely.
live.
Yeah.
And that means that it's like we need to have security. We need to have love. We need to have compassion, both for ourselves and for each other. And what happens to us at work, like what we do at work, how we conduct ourselves at work, all of that affects the quality of life that we are living.
Yeah.
And so maybe that'll be my next book, is how I don't believe in work-life balance, because
I'm the same.
It is a lie.
Yes. You know what else, Janice, too, is a lie that I found is when people say, oh, well, it's just business. Like, I feel like people are using that as a scapegoat to be an a-hole. No.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. It's just business. I get it that a business has to, well, now we're going to get real political. A business has to serve other goals that are not my personal goals. So sure. It's just business, usually a shorthand for, we're going to make a decision that increases our short-term profits over our values, right? Like that's what it's used as an excuse for. And I honestly think that it is not appropriate for us to have a foundation of our well-being. We live in a capitalistic society. That's cool, right? But the foundation of our well-being cannot be money above everything else.
Right.
We have to be fully responsible and driven by values that we collectively as a society believe in. And money above all is not that.
It's not the value we should be going for.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, I wholeheartedly agree with that, Janice. This has been such a powerful conversation. Thank you so much. And I'm so excited for your book, and we will definitely be linking it in the show notes. What is one last key takeaway to the woman who is listening right now and is like, what do I do first? Like, what's my first step?
So I would say the first step is first and a second step. First step is just know what is the outcome. Forget the plans, forget the steps, forget what is the important thing that you're trying to accomplish next. And where are you right now? And what makes that complicated? It's like, if you just have that point A, point B framing, you are going to make so much more progress, so much more easily. And I think that knowing how to frame that, what is the outcome and what is making this moment complicated? Now you have an action plan. It kind of it'll just come to you.
Yeah. And it does, when you said earlier, just that map, Like that really clicked in my head of absolutely. You have to know where you are.
Yes.
And be honest with yourself on where you are. Like, don't blow it up. Don't make it look better than it is. Like, be honest with yourself.
You definitely have to look at this and figure out why they're icky and how can we make them less icky. And you have to know if everybody else is in the same place you are, because maybe they're not.
Right.
So yeah.
So
well, thank you so much for this. I cannot thank you enough for doing this podcast. I think it's wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time, your patience, and your understanding with the dogs.
I see you, girl. Ditto.
Awesome, Janice. Thank you so much. Have a good afternoon.
You too.
Bye-bye.
That's all for today, my friends. Be sure to give us a 5-star rate and review and hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you're looking for more connection, more resources, be sure to check out womenleaderspodcast.com and see how you can get involved with the Women Leaders Association chapter nearest you. Bye for now.